Is Killzone for the PS2 one of the worst first-person shooter games of all time? Let's find out in this retrospective of Guerrilla Games' first entry in their gritty and gun-blazing series. Killzone was developed and released in 2004 by Guerrilla Games, a company who up to that point had only produced a few small GBA titles. Killzone was originally touted as the Halo killer of the PlayStation 2, which, quick note, Halo 2 also came out in 2004. And by that point, the Halo games, along with several other first-person shooters, had become completely synonymous with the Xbox. At that time, I really didn't care too much, since I had a PlayStation 2, and the PlayStation 2 already had a plethora of different games to play. But then Killzone actually came out. At E3 2004, critics praised the game for its stylish but hellish realistic war environments and unique weapons. One particular feature noted and hyped was the addition of 4 playable characters with different playstyles. At the Guerrilla Games booth, attendees would have been facing off against the sinister Helghast army. The Helghast soldiers, as explained by Guerrilla Games, were a faction that was fighting the human army of the ISA over the control of the planet Vector. Overall, there really wasn't much detail offered on the story, and Guerrilla Games really didn't promote the story or the world of Killzone as much as the gameplay itself. Additionally, players were also excited to learn that Killzone had an online feature as well, and back then, PlayStation Online was pretty awesome, and many of the top developers took advantage of the online feature. As a result, you had some of the best PlayStation titles added with online play. Unlike Microsoft, you didn't need to pay a subscription for playing online with your PS2. So long as you had an internet connection and adapter depending on which model PS2 you had, you were good. For Killzone's sake, even if you didn't have the online play, you still had a pretty nice multiplayer feature that offered up to 14 bots to use in multitudes of matches. When the game did come out in November 2004, it received a mixed number of reviews. There was plenty to like about the game. The gameplay, while repetitive and tiresome, did offer a good bit of challenge, and the weapons for the game were very detailed. But these positive things did not take away from the overall problems that the game had. If you ever played Killzone for the original PS2, then you know what I'm talking about. Killzone offers a wonderful array of different Warzone environments, ranging from war-torn urban landscapes to foggy swamps. In a lot of cases, the scenery is pretty good. However, when viewing many of the indoor environments, there are portions of the levels that are entirely too dark to actually navigate, and some designs can be confusing since there's no in-game map at all. Levels are also plagued by inconsistent checkpoints that take forever to get to. And on top of that, the enemy AI is oftentimes inconsistent. Every now and then, the Helghast army will ambush you, but at times they'll just stare at you with those creepy yellow eyes of theirs. Killzone was especially remembered for its many glitches. All the soldiers, whether they be Helghast or ISA, seem to merge into the ground or walls whenever they're killed. Upon being shot, enemies seem to skip frame rates and instantly drop to the ground. At times, Killzone can have some pretty rough looking features, and the visuals really leave a lot to be desired. At the time, I believed all the glitches of the game could have been forgiven if the controls of the game were just a little bit more polished. Killzone is a hard game to really get comfortable with. The controls are super stiff when doing just about everything. Part of the real challenge of Killzone is dealing with the terrible aiming system. You'll find that aiming your weapon can be super difficult in most cases. You're almost always trying to line up a shot correctly, and this is prevented by the inaccurate rate of fire for most weapons. With that said, throughout the duration of the game, you will waste a bunch of ammo, and I really believe that the terrible gun controls are best highlighted whenever picking up a sniper rifle. For some strange reason, you have to juggle a very frenetic crosshair whenever aiming a sniper rifle. It seems like they turned something as simple as aiming a sniper rifle into a minigame in itself. Another interesting feature, or lack of, is the exclusion of the jump button. Instead of using X to jump, you use X to climb over barriers, climb ladders, and perform melee attacks. Why didn't they just make square the action button and keep an X button for jump? And my last qualm is the lack of music. Killzone on the surface might look engaging, but it really offers a fairly dull experience. Some decent music tracks would have done a lot in keeping the player entertained. Not to mention added in some serious ambiance for several of the more boring stages. Overall, Killzone was a disappointment when it came out. As compared to games like Halo 2, it lacked a lot of details and aspects which gamers were looking for. And many of the problems which I mentioned are enough to drive anyone crazy while playing it. But does that make it the worst first-person shooter ever? No, not really. While Killzone does have its various problems, it still offers a good deal of action. Eventually, while you're playing it, you will get used to the terrible controls, and you are better able to survive the intense firefights which ensue. And after some time spent using every weapon, you're able to appreciate how much detail actually went into their designs. Guerrilla Games did do something right, and that was capturing the heat of battle. Within the multiple shootouts, your heart will be racing trying to reload your weapon just before you're rushed by 2 to 3 enemies. The gunfire sounds going off around you really adds to this intensity. And after all these years, I still find that you can pull off some pretty decent actions. Particularly throwing a very well placed and well timed charged grenade into a crowded area of enemies is absolutely satisfying. And taking out an enemy marksman from far away using just a pistol is absolutely sweet. Killzone really did provide some memorable battle encounters, both good and bad, and if you can survive them, you'll have a great deal of fun. It would be a shame to rank this game as one of the worst FPSs of all time. Despite the multiple problems, we can still appreciate the fact that without this original game, Sony fanboys would have never have gotten the much better sequels. While it will never be considered the Halo killer, in every sense of the heavy marketed term, we can still agree that for its impact and nostalgia, Killzone is definitely a 6th generation gem. That concludes this video. Please make sure you subscribe to Smoking Fiend Productions and keep on the lookout for more retrospectives. Thank you and have a good one.